Do you think you're too young to be thinking about marriage?
Yes.
No way, I don't think I'm too young to be thinking about marriage as long as I find the right girl.
Yeah, I think I'm too young to be thinking about marriage because I'm only 16 and it's too young to get married.
I'm only 18, I'm still in high school. I think I should be concentrating on like college and just getting my life together first.
That's too much of a commitment.
Not ready for that at all.
No, definitely not. I love marriage. I think it's a great thing for everybody.
I think marriage is something you should take your time to think about and really develop into it.
Well, I think I'm too young to get married because I'm still 17 and I still got my whole life to live. And I want to go to college, do things with my life.
No, I think any time that you start thinking is the right time for yourself.
I've been in a long relationship, and were times when I felt that I was good, but then when I see it went bad, I realized just how young I really was.
I don't think I'm too young because I'm 18 and I'm going to get married probably in like 5 or 10 years, so I think I should start planning it.
No, I do not think I'm too young to be thinking about marriage because I feel like young girls, no matter what age they are, they're always going to be thinking about marriage. Like I was thinking about marriage ever since I was like 5. Like it's just always something that comes to mind, like how you want your wedding to be. I guess not necessarily who you're going to be marrying, but like, I don't know, just like the basics of it.
You date, you have to, you're not with someone for no reason. You're with someone to see them, be with them for the future. So you have to think about who fits you for the future. I am waiting for, praying for you, darling. Wait for me to wait for me as I wait for you.
What are you singing?
Wait for Me by Rebecca St. James. It's like my favorite song. When I listen to it, I think about my future husband waiting for me.
Kristen, you're only 16. Don't you think you're a little bit too young to be thinking about marriage?
Absolutely not. I mean, teenagers should be thinking about marriage. You gotta pray about it. It's coming.
I guess you're right. I never really looked at it that way. What about you? Do you think you're too young to think about marriage?
That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Realfaith TV. Preparing for your marriage when you're a teenager is a great thing. When I say preparing, I don't mean picking the guy, reserving the church, and the DJ. I mean preparing yourself for marriage. For instance, one of the ways I'm preparing for marriage is by staying chaste.
I guess it really is a new way of looking at it. The obvious answer is we're too young. We'll get our studio guest views on this topic, as well as hear more from the teens on the street a little bit later in the show.
But first, let's meet our spotlight guests, Danny and Alma. Danny and Alma are engaged.
They will give us their thoughts on marriage and if they think teenagers are too young to think about marriage.
Thinking about marriage, I don't think I ever thought about getting married as a teenager because there's so much else going on in life. But to think about it, it's definitely a beautiful thing, marriage. It's a sacrament. When I think about marriage, I think about, children and owning a home. It's kind of a cool thing to think about, but before, I think about that and actually, moving toward that direction, there's a lot of other things that I should be thinking about, like school, what college I'm gonna go to. Because if I'm not prepared, if I can't take care of myself later in life, then how am I gonna be able to take care of a marriage? So another individuals.
Like if you don't get ready by yourself, then you won't be able to give the other something. My advice would be focus on growing up, so then you can share something with the other and growing up together.
Yeah, we're engaged. So Alma and I, we got engaged in January, and we both feel very blessed that we're gonna get married and we're gonna spend the rest of our lives with each other.
Traits to aspire towards as we prepare for marriage are many of the same traits that help us prepare for a happy and joyful life in general.
For me, working on having a good, solid relationship with God has helped me in all aspects of my life. I hope that it will also help me when it comes to my decision to marry and who to marry.
Let's meet our studio guests and see how they feel about this.
They are Patrick, Christina, Phil, Ijama, Dan, Annie, and Nick.
So do you guys think we're too young to think about marriage, or do you ever think about it yourself?
I think we're too young to think about marriage because, I'm only 16. I didn't graduate high school yet. I'm not even sure what college I want to go to. So I don't think I should be thinking about who I'm going to marry.
I disagree. I think you're never too young to think about marriage. My mom got married at 17, so for a while I always thought, that's the age to get married. So when I was younger, I always thought about, what should I do to prepare myself for marriage?
you know, everyone kind of thinks about it. For myself, I've thought about it, not to the point where I'm about to go out and get myself engaged, but you know, I'm kind of preparing myself for what God gives me, and which will hopefully end up with a happy marriage.
I think you're never too young. Like, we should always be looking at qualities in other people that be, I would like that in my future spouse, or I really don't like that quality. I really don't see that would complement our relationship at all. So it's never too young to think about. You should always be looking at other people and kind of seeing what's best for you.
Yeah, I look at it in a more practical sense. Like, I think, what could I do to prepare myself for marriage and what's going to happen during it? Like, I think, how am I going to settle myself down and be ready to make that next step? Like, I can't be worrying about college and school and stuff and marriage. I want to get all that done. I want to get my career set and then like prepare myself really for marriage, to settle down and see who I want to share my entire life with, all my successes and my failures. I have to worry about all that.
Yeah, I agree with Phil.
I notice a lot of the kids on the streets confuse getting married with preparing for marriage.
Right, I agree. I don't think many of us are thinking about getting married anytime soon, but it's good to think about it for the future.
I like to consider marriage a lifelong commitment. It is a process that begins from the day you're born all the way up to marriage itself, especially in self-control, because when you practice self-control, you're able to make a total and full gift of yourself to your spouse.
Marriage is a way to live out our vocation, which is the holiness God calls us to discover in our own heart.
We may not all be called to marriage. Some of us may be called to religious life or the single life.
What we do to get ready for our marriage is similar to what we do to prepare for any of life's vocations.
This preparation of self-discovery and relationship with God can even help us realize our own vocation.
Next, let's go back to the teens on the street and find out if they want to get married.
And if they think there's anything they can do to prepare now for marriage.
I want to get married when I find the right person, somebody I know I want to be with.
I want to get married eventually. But if I find the right girl, yeah, I will get married.
Yeah, of course. I'd like to have a little bit of Kevin's running around someday, you know. Coach them through sports, you know, let them know what I think about them, teach them life lessons, you know, maybe learn from my mistakes.
Right now I'm trying to have fun, you know, trying to live my life and get set financially before I even come up with that decision.
Be 7-10 years, probably. I think it's always best if you wait till you're actually sure. Like,
yeah, like later, like when I'm 30, because I like to have a family.
Yes, I do want to get married.
Yes, I think every girl dreams about her wedding day and being married.
Oh, I just want a husband and I want a family, children, lots of kids and all that nice stuff.
Yeah, sometime I would like to get married because I like to eventually settle down and have a family.
What could you be doing now to prepare for a lifelong marriage?
I don't think there's anything I could do about it now.
Staying single, not meeting anybody till I'm 28.
I don't really know right now because I'm still too young.
I think finance is one of the biggest things, to be able to have a family, take care of them.
I guess right now I could just be concentrating on doing well in school so I could get a good job and then become a little bit successful so I could have enough money to buy a house and get married.
Just finding the right person for a marriage.
Just dating, I guess.
I think you should just go on with life to understand what you really want from life. Have the experience that you want to have, because after marriage, it's like you're locked down.
Staying healthy, be a good person, try to be a good role model for everyone else.
Abstinence. Just, focusing on school, college, I guess, doing the right thing, jobs.
So do you guys think there's anything you could be doing now to prepare for marriage?
I feel like when they asked the teens on the street that, a lot of them commented on the financial issue or they just want to settle down. But you actually, I feel like when you're thinking about marriage, you should try and get to know yourself, because marriage isn't always rainbows and butterflies. There's hard parts too, and you need to know yourself and know how what you're like as a person in order to help get through the hard times with your future spouse.
Going off of that, you need to learn to love yourself and accept yourself before you can love someone else and accept someone else.
You should also figure out who you're compatible with, who you work best with, who you can cooperate with. You can't be with someone that you don't get along with, because then you're not going to be happy.
I think also the prayer is a huge aspect. You need to pray. I know my mom and my dad pray for my future spouse and my sisters, and say if they're going to be married, I'd like to pray for my future spouse.
Like Phil said, you think about what you're looking for, the certain qualities that somebody has and certain qualities that you have to match up with that person.
Yeah, I think also something else you could do, like you were saying, know yourself to get through any hardships. You can, if your parents hit like a bump in the road, or there's like a financial problem, or just something happens in the family, you can think ahead and say, well, in my marriage, what would I do in this situation? And like by knowing yourself, you can know what you do and how you'd handle it. And I think that would help when real obstacles come up for your life.
Yeah, and especially if you just have to look out, you have to figure out who you want to meet, who you want to settle down with, and that's like a big part of that too.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone has a different idea about what a perfect marriage should be.
When we were little, our perfect marriage may have been the big wedding day with the bridegroom sweeping the bride off her feet.
I know you always thought about that, Kristen.
Yeah, but there was also a castle. You forgot that, buddy.
As we grow older, these ideas or images mature. We reach a better understanding of what a marriage really is meant to be.
It's not just the ceremony or the celebration. It's about understanding, compassion, patience, unconditional love, and commitment.
Next, we asked the teens on the street what they thought made a perfect marriage.
And who some of their role models are.
My mom has been my role model. She's always giving me good advice when I'm with different guys. She tells me what they should do, what they shouldn't do.
My best friend's parents showed me a good marriage because they're happy together and my parents aren't.
My parents are my role models and they show me what's a good marriage.
I'd like to look at my parents for marriage because they've been married, happily married for 35 years. And even though they have their issues, they're always able to work everything out. Teach me to never give up.
My parents actually divorced, so marriage is not really one of the big things to have role models on for me.
I've actually been really lucky. My parents have been married for 20 years now, and definitely my parents are a role model, and I hope to be married and have a happy marriage like they do.
Told me it's my mom and my dad, because they've been married for like 20 years. They always complimenting each other, they still love each other.
The person that taught me what a good marriage should be like is my dad. He usually is my role model for everything.
The perfect marriage to me is a marriage where you can laugh and have fun and raise good children.
So perfect marriage is just being happy together.
Like to have no arguments, no fights.
A family that's able to get through daily life without separation, always trying to look for the positive things. It's real tough nowadays. Everyone's getting divorced. I feel like just everyone's giving up too quickly.
It should be based on respect for your partner. It's more like a bond, a friendship.
Perfect marriage would be somebody that you can see yourself with for the rest of your life.
Yes, a marriage is going to be as good as you make it, and I don't think there's a such thing as a perfect marriage.
But I do think that once you find the right person, that you'd be able to, the marriage would succeed in my opinion, as long as you guys have love for each other.
I'm lucky to have parents that are happily married, and I hope to have that. And I feel sorry for kids that don't see that in their home, but they should look for that.
Partners have to understand each other and know what they want from a relationship. See, some people have like 50 years anniversary. They have kids, grandkids, great grandkids, and it's an awesome thing. But it's something nowadays, especially, is really harder to have couples who last long, like they barely last 2 years.
Watching other married couples as they cope with the everyday life, joys, and struggles can help us to understand marriage.
Part of preparing for our own marriage is watching and learning from those marriages that put God and family first, marriages that weather the storms.
Next, Danny and Alma tell us about the importance of having God between them.
And who their marriage role models are.
When I imagine a happy marriage is where we can both find middle ground with everything, because that's one of the biggest struggles I think with in a relationship. You're two different people. I don't like shopping, like for shoes or something. I'll still go. I might struggle walking to the mall with her, but it's because I love her. And it's something that I like to do, but she doesn't. It's the same thing. And I see that as being real love. There's times where, I'm really upset with her, or she's, more of the time she's more upset with me usually. But we always grow together more and more. And if there wasn't God in between us, it would make things so much harder. And I think that's a huge part of a successful relationship. My grandparents have been married for 58 years. It is such a treat when Alma and I go over to my grandparents to watch them. My grandpa's 85, my grandmother is 83, and they still love each other like they're 16. It is just such an inspiration. That's what I want for us. You don't hear that very often anymore. You hear people married for 5, 6 years and getting divorced. And so it's always a great place for me to fall back on my grandparents, that marriage can work and you can be happy for 58 years together. I have a very good friend of mine who just got married last year, both good friends of ours. Watching them get married, it kind of inspired me to kind of start thinking about my life and what I wanted in our relationship, because our relationship was growing. And it's like, well, the next step, really, we should start thinking about if we want to spend the rest of our lives with each other.
You know what, I would probably have to say that my parents are my role models for marriage. I mean, they love each other so much and they always do everything together. And even when they get in fights, I mean, what family doesn't get in fights?
Yeah.
They still love each other in the end, and that's kind of awesome.
I'd have to agree with you, Matt, that my parents are my role models because like they met when they were 18 and like they're still married. Like I think they're married 27 years now. So I think most kids like role models are their parents, but definitely mine are my parents.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, myself included, would say that their parents are their role models because, you know, you grow up watching your parents interact with each other, take care of your family, take care of their personal lives together, and you see the things that they do that make the relationship work. You know, if their relationship isn't so good, then you see things that you want to improve when you marry and you're with your spouse. Like, so even if your parents' marriage isn't what you think a perfect marriage should be, you know, you can improve upon that, and everyone takes a little bit from their family when they move on.
One of my role models for a great marriage is the Huxtables from The Cosby Show. To me, they provide me a perfect example of a marriage because they're selfless, they compromise, and they make sacrifices for their family.
Yeah, Danny said that in a perfect marriage, there has to be a middle ground, and I think that's a very important part, like being able to compromise, being able, even if you don't want to do something, being able to put that aside for the person you really care about and really want to be with.
My parents are my role models. They fight sometimes, but at the end of the day, they love each other and they're really committed to each other.
Those are all good comments and suggestions for people who had parents, but what about for, like, if your parents were divorced?
Well, actually, like, one of my friends, her parents, you know, had a rough divorce, but now she lives with her mom and her grandparents. And the grandparents are like a really nice, like, old, strong couple, and they're very, very supportive. And so I think, like, that's what she looks up to as, like, a good role model for a couple.
I would say the greatest example for a married couple would be the Trinity, because they express selfless love, and that's really what we're called to do in marriage.
The Catholic theologian Karl Rahner wrote, "Marriage then opens out into the mystery of God in a much more radical sense than we could have suspected from the unconditional nature of human love."
Marriage is a way to understand more about God by giving oneself to another person.
Marriage is often the best part of life, but it also takes a lot of work to maintain.
Married people should never expect their partners to be perfect.
There's no such thing as a perfect marriage, perfect wife, perfect husband, or perfect family.
So what does our faith teach us about marriage?
That's what we happen to ask the teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
It teaches me that it's something that you have to be committed to and you can't just jump in it for any other reason besides love.
Trustworthy and nice to each other.
Marriage is between two people who love each other.
Marriage should be, you know, respected and treasured.
There's more to it than just liking a person, than just loving them.
My faith teaches me to be no premarital sex, you know, and to treat a girl right. They shouldn't be, you know, taken upon as property, and they should have just as much respect for them as that I do for my friends.
My faith basically teaches me that like marriage is a sacred bond between like two people, a man and a woman. And I guess basically from that you could just tell that it's something serious, one of the most serious things in your life. And it's a big decision, so I guess you should always think it through. Because you're going to be with this person possibly your whole life, or at least you want to.
How do you think prayer can help to build and keep a couple strong in their marriage?
Because if they have problems, maybe they could feel that they could talk to God and God could help them with their problems.
Prayer keeps a couple closer together and they have a strong religious view with each other, so that's always good.
Marriage unions are blessed by the Catholic Church in the sacrament of matrimony.
Matrimonial union between two people is a sacrament that mirrors the relationship between Christ and the Church.
Next, Danny and Alma share their views about this and the importance of prayer in their relationship.
Alma and I really try to practice this idea of having God in between us. Because marriage in the Catholic faith is a sacrament. And what's a sacrament? Sacrament's a way to have grace and find grace and to get closer to God. And that's exactly what it is for us. It's such a great opportunity for me to get closer to God through our relationship. I always love the idea of Scripture talks about, you know, the woman being like the church, you know, man kind of like Christ. But it's such a beautiful connection between each other because they're so. For me, I get this picture of just being kind of like one. You need to pray a lot. Even more of a blessing, something that Alma and I started really early on in our relationship, is when we struggle about something, we pray about it together. There is nothing better, I think, than to pray with another individual that you're very close to and connected to.
We also like a lot the story of St. Francis and St. Clare. They really love each other. It was amazing. There was something between them, but they didn't put it out. They just love through God, and that's what I think prayer it does to us. It's making it stronger. It's a different love, a different kind of love that's what motivates us to get married. It's just so powerful. I think for me the most important part is that we love each other, but through God.
The decision to marry is one that should take a lot of thought and prayer.
So how about you guys? How do you guys think that prayer and relationship with God and our church community can just help us prepare for our marriage?
I think prayer is very important when it comes to discerning what you want to do with your life. Like for me, I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to have a family. But if God's calling me to the priesthood, I'm not going to shut that door on him. Praying about it, really thinking about it, will eventually really help me figure out what I want to do in my life, how I'm going to approach, well, yeah, the rest of my life.
I think with my relationship with God, I've spent my entire life, being brought up in His Word and with His virtues. And, as I practice that throughout my life, I want to be looking for someone who shares the same values and the same virtues as I do.
It's also important to practice virtues, like you had mentioned, because this is a task to uphold, and it's a vocation that God is calling you to.
Something else you can do within your church is talk to like a priest or deacon or spiritual director, and you could talk to them for help discerning your vocation. They could pray with you. I think that's something that's really interesting, and it really helps to seek out.
You know what else, that song you were singing earlier, Wait For Me? There's also a book that goes along with that, and it's all about, praying that person out there is waiting for you and looking for you, because, we're looking for them. They're also looking for us. We have to pray to God to make sure that they wait for us and they're doing the same thing as we are.
Yeah, I think praying for them and praying for yourself so you guys can persevere and stay chaste and keep waiting and holding out and stay strong while you're looking for each other. I think that's really cool to do. Next, Alma tells us how we have to learn to love in a selfless way through our heart and our mind.
Teenagers thinking about marriage, I think it's something like a goal. It's there. It doesn't mean you have to go there right now, but you can think about it. You can get prepared yourself. You have to learn how to love. You have to learn to give yourselves through sacrifice. You have to give up small things, and that's how you learn how to love. Not through physical contact, but just to give yourself to the other with your heart and with your mind. My parents right now, I think they are gonna be 30 years married this month. My parents always love each other a lot. We always saw them laugh together, even cry. We keep working on that, and I think that's all that matters.
I really liked what Alma said about learning to love someone with your heart and your mind, not in a physical way.
So what about you guys? What advice do you have for other teenagers about what they're doing now that will help them prepare or help us to prepare for marriage?
I think you should just keep yourself open and ready, and you should look at all the possibilities, because you never know where you're going to meet your spouse.
I agree with Dan. I think as teens and young adults, we should focus on dating for marriage as opposed to dating somebody because you think they're cute or you like their shoes they wear.
Yeah, that's definitely for true.
I agree with Ajama. I think, as I'm about to go to college, and a lot of people say, oh, I met my spouse in college, or, we first met in college and then we dated, and it's kind of it's finally hitting me that, this could happen to me soon. So when that happens, you want to focus on preparing yourself for marriage, like we've been talking about, by knowing who you are and loving yourself so that you will be able to love someone else and give yourself to them completely.
Yeah, I think prayer is also a really important part of preparing yourself. You really have to ask God to guide you on your path and really show you what you want, what you need, and really open doors and maybe even lead you to your spouse.
Yeah, this prayer that I always pray, I say, Lord, I want and you know what I need. So give me what I need and not what I want. And, he always takes care of it because, God knows more than we do. Remember that you're never too young to think about marriage. It's a serious and holy commitment, which can take a good part of our lives to prepare for.
In fact, our faith tells us that we begin to prepare for marriage the day we are born and enter our new family.
In the Vatican document, Preparation for the Sacrament of Marriage, Pope John Paul II calls this remote preparation.
Remote preparation includes infancy, childhood, and adolescence, and takes place first of all in the family.
He says the example of parents becomes a real witness for those who will marry in the future.
And that a Christian lifestyle witnessed by Christian families is the very foundation of remote preparation.
So, do you think you're too young to think about marriage?
We'd love to know what you think. Contact us through our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And we'll leave you today with this final thought.
As we think about and prepare for marriage, remember that our future spouse is the embodiment of Christ's presence in our lives.
It is in marriage where we can learn more about the nature of God.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless.